Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. The Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa launched the Black Economic Empowerment portion of its rolling stock renewal program this week. Terence Creamer joins me to provide some details. Terence, welcome to Second Take. Prasa has decided to separate the BEE element from the main equipment supply tender. Why is that?
Well, a few weeks ago we heard that that 7 companies, international companies mostly with local partners, had bid for the main equipment supply, which is probably possibly up to 7,200 passenger trains or coaches over the next 20 years. But we're going through this in a phased approach. So the first focus is the 40 billion affordability envelope that the National Treasury has given Prasa to pursue, and they've opened a bidding process on the basis of having secured that capital from the taxpayer to renew and overhaul their fleet, which is pretty old. It's the average age of the Metro Rail coaches that we see driving around Johannesburg and other cities is over 30 years. So there's an urgent need to come in with new equipment. And we saw these international companies bid to supply the equipment. Some well-known names in there, some names that we don't know, mostly European, also some North American and Asian suppliers. But they've also got another element to this package, which is the Black Economic Empowerment, broad-based Black Economic Empowerment element. And they're running that as a separate tender. And they so basically looking at 30% of the project delivery company, which will have probably the international supplier and its technology. And then the other 30%, which would be 70%, and then 30% would be the Black Economic Empowerment partner. And they're running this as a tender, a separate request for proposals. So while they're evaluating the equipment tender, they've delinked this, and they're wanting it's a different approach, a separated approach, so that they can evaluate the technology independently of the sort of social economic benefits that can flow to South Africans and local industry, but specifically previously disadvantaged South Africans through black empowerment. And the view is that they're wanting, in their view, the best of both worlds. So they want to be able to choose the technology that on basis of price and quality, etc., and then not have that crowded out or made blurred in any way by the way that consortium is packaged. So they can then look at the best empowerment package and the best equipment. So that's the rationale for the separation.
There has been some criticism of the separation.
Yes, I think black business in particular, when they saw the separation, it raised some eyebrows. Because a lot of the companies that are bidding are enterprises that have got long histories in South Africa and have got empowerment partners already integrated into them. How they're going to fit into this, how they're going to be recognized is not clear. But there's also this whole element of the way, do you have a forced marriage? So, these international companies traditionally have gone out and selected a partner, people that they feel that they understand, that have similar values, etc. And now you're going to be bringing guys or partners in that potentially the international partner doesn't really know from a bar of soap. And potentially they might be their current partner because they are allowed to bid for the request for proposals and participate, but it might be people that are totally unknown or individuals that are totally unknown to the international equipment supplier. So there is a risk factor there that has been raised by black business. The other thing is the structure. I think there's quite a positive elements to the structure. There's a big portion that's stipulated for an employee trust. So of the 30%, it's 10% of the 30 has to be from employee trust, benefiting workers below a certain grade in the company, so not sort of senior management level. So you're immediately seeing that sort of broadening the base of this transaction. There's also an education trust element so that we can train the necessary engineers, artisans, and the people that sort of are needed, the engineers that are needed to run the railway service, the commuter railway service in the future. And then you've got the passive sort of traditional black economic empowerment investor that we are accustomed to. the usual suspects have only been really allocated 7 of the 30, which is a much smaller portion than what I suppose they're used to. That's probably also raised some of the eyebrows in the black economic empowerment community. And then they want 10 of the 30 to go to people that are already involved in the rail industry, black industrialist people, black-owned companies that are already supplying into Prasa. So you can see they've gone for a fairly different kind of structure, laudable in many ways in the way that, they're stipulating certain limits so that we don't have the usual suspects and a few individuals walking away with the big prize. And on the other hand, you can see that there are potentially downside risks.
Do you think this could emerge as a new template for the way that government pursues or influences BEE deals?
Yes, government's looking at a number of issues around BEE. They are the main game in town at the moment. You've got Eskom with their big projects. You've got Transnet with theirs, and they've also got big locomotive tenders coming up very soon. We've got the renewable energy program, all of which are integrating BEE in different ways. And this is another new template or another approach that's being tested and tried. As I mentioned earlier, I think there are some risks to this approach. If the two partners don't see eye to eye, they are given a period of something like 6 months to, come to terms, and there are a lot of contractual and legal instruments that can be used, I think, for partners to come to terms over that period, but they could be unknown quantities. So that is a risk, and it could lead to even greater short-termism. There is a lock-in period of 3 years for these empowerment partners, but that's not a very long-term given that this is a 20-year rollout, with the first 40 billion being spent in the first 10 years, and potentially 123 billion and 7,200 coaches over the 20-year period. So it's a big program, and you don't want to encourage short-termism. So if they don't get on, don't see eye to eye, you can imagine there's a lot of flipping that could take place of shares after that 3-year lock-in. But on the other hand, you've got the employee element, the educational trust, and those will probably be fairly stable elements to it. So it is a template, they're testing it, and I think it's going to be interesting to see, and I'm sure the black economic empowerment community is going to be watching this very closely, because it could have merit, if you decouple the technology, so you get the best price, the best technology for your needs, and the empowerment consortium, because often those, as I mentioned earlier, those lines can get blurred because you see so much merit in the empowerment aspect of it that you maybe give them a greater weighting over a technology that might have been more favourable on the other hand from another supplier. So it's an interesting separation, it's an interesting experiment. It has raised already immediate criticisms, and you can already see some of the storm clouds that can gather over a process like this. But I think we have to wait and see and give it some time, and we'll really only know, during that period of once the equipment supplier is selected, which should be around end of November, December, and the BEE partner is selected in early next year, and that period between those two selections and the financial close to see whether this sort of model can work. And then, of course, we have to see, when it's operationalized, if it really does work. So a number of risks, a number of issues that still have to be resolved, but it's an interesting template and it could well work.
Terence, thank you very much. That is the Second Take show for this week. Thank you for watching, and join us again next time for more news analysis.